Warren Buffett knows what he's talking about.
Don't you mean Warren Buffett?
What's up, everybody? It's October 7th, 2020. Very excited to have Anthony Milone on the Richuation Room today. Anthony, how's it going?
How's it going, Rich? Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, should be fun. I woke Anthony up at the crack of dawn this morning to do this. So if there's bags under our eyes and we're talking a little drowsy, then that's the excuse, at least, that I'm going into this thing with. So for people that don't know you, Anthony, just give us a quick little rundown about who you are and a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, so I'm based out of New York. I studied my undergrad in accounting and business, and then I got my master's in accounting. So right now I work as a public accountant in an accounting firm. I would be working in New York City, but currently been working remotely, which kind of gives me a lot more time to focus on YouTube, which is kind of nice. So honestly, I've always had a passion for personal finances, and I started my channel back in like last September. And my channel's had a lot of transitioning, but it really started out with kind of doing Robinhood portfolio reviews. And then I started doing like M1 finance. And now I'm getting into a lot of different things, as we're probably getting into today with the sports card investing. But as with investing, I've always had a passion for sports as well. So that's kind of why I kind of bring in everything that I enjoy talking about, and kind of just a mesh of all of that stuff together.
Yeah, very cool. I think obviously people who are into sports, a lot of them don't realize that there's so much business that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, people hear about salary caps, they hear about how much players are getting paid, but that's kind of like the broad strokes. I feel like that people don't see the stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then everything else in terms of merchandise, sports cards, which we're going to talk about a little bit as well. So I think sports and business go hand in hand, as
Yes.
maybe a little bit more than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
For you just kind of having the inclination to go into finance, into accounting, how did that happen? Was this something that you grew up with, parents involved in business and investing? Kind of how did that process go there that got you interested in it?
Yeah, my parents always would talk about, like saving and the importance of saving, but they weren't necessarily. My dad worked in sales, so kind of that was tied to the business side of it. But I've always just been interested in it from like a young age, like 18. I wanted to get like my own Robinhood account open and just start like learning and following the market. And, it was like dabbling, a couple bucks here and there, but just trying to understand like what caused the stocks to go up and down, and just like reading information, looking at articles. So that just really got me fascinated from a young age. And then as I, went to college, I kind of knew I wanted to study, business. And then like my school in particular didn't have like a great finance program. So I think that's what kind of led me to going for accounting, because it was known for like a good accounting school. And they had like a lot of top public accounting firms that came there for recruiting. And so like that kind of led me towards that accounting to get that background of business. And yeah, just from like a young age, I always knew I wanted to do something in the lines of business and kind of just build my understanding of the markets and the finance side of it.
Gotcha. I've had this conversation with a few different people in regards to learning about finance at higher level education. I was a business management major, and one of the things that I found is even though you are in these majors at these good schools, they kind of miss the ball on teaching a lot of the basics in terms of finance and investing. So obviously you were an accounting major. I'm sure there were other classes in terms of finance and investing that you had to take. So maybe if you wouldn't mind touching on, maybe it was a great program, maybe it wasn't, but you come out with this degree. Did you feel like you have the knowledge that you've gained now, a few years later?
Yeah, I would say so. There was one class in particular, it was like a financial statement analysis course. That was probably one of the most in-depth courses I took throughout my whole undergrad career. And I believe that same professor did teach a similar course in the grad program as well. So like we legit would dive into like full on financial statements and have to like break down ratios and like hunt down like a full like annual report of say like Disney or Ford. Like everyone got a different company, and he would have us calculate like these crazy ratios and just try to look for like all this information. So that class was really in depth, and we each got our own company throughout the semester. We had to do like full on presentations and break down like year over year analysis and actually present it to the class. So I feel like that class helped me a lot. And that professor was always very open to like, kind of combating you and like asking you like, okay, why are you presenting it this way? Or why do you think it should be that? And it wasn't like you just did it and that was it. And there was like feedback from the class, and you say like, okay, what do you think of this? It was like really involved. And it kind of, I think that helped me a lot with the channel, because it's a lot of just like what I do is I'll, talk about a stock and why I like the stock, but then what are the pros and what are the cons. So I think that class was a big influence.
That's good to hear, and I'm sure a lot of it comes down to the professor, because if the professor is not very comfortable with that kind of topic and it's not something they do themselves, then they're probably not going to be comfortable teaching it at an in-depth level. So, yeah, that's really good to hear. So now that you're making money outside your job or outside of college, or even if you were doing this in college, but what were the first steps you took to actually start investing, if you remember?
Yeah, so when I first started, I don't think Robinhood was open yet. So I was on, I think, TD Ameritrade. And it was like those, every time you made a trade, you have to pay like $10 or so. So I think I ended up buying like a couple shares of like Microsoft and just bought and hold it. So I didn't do much trading in that account. But then once I got the Robinhood, I found, okay, there's, zero commission trading. So it was basic steps, just trying to, maybe build a couple positions like in AT&T. I did start investing in Apple for I think like 2016 or so. So that's been like one of my best performers. But as of now, I've got into like a consistent investment strategy where I do $100 into my Robinhood each week and $100 into my M1 Finance. And the M1 Finance is kind of nice because it's all predetermined on where the allocations go. So I think I have like 25 different stocks. I initially started it with focusing on Google and Amazon, like 80% of that whole portfolio for like about a year. So that built up that position really quick. But then I'm looking at the account. I'm like, okay, this is just too heavily weighted towards these stocks. So I think at that point I decided to add a few more positions and then kind of spread out that allocation to those two. So right now it's kind of just going into both of those on a weekly basis.
And how did you make those decisions to get into Apple, Google, Microsoft? Was that just by nature of knowing that they were good companies, or did you kind of do research on that?
Yeah, research and just thinking like I just had a feeling like these were just the kind of the top dogs to go for. The consistency, the growth is there as well. And I just see the long term with them.
I think you made a good choice on that. I'm assuming. I don't know your portfolio looks like, but just by how they've been doing lately, it's I'm sure that was a good call. And then what is your actual, if you don't mind sharing, the actual strategy behind each one? Do you have different strategies? Are you just looking for companies that you think are going to be good in the long term? I know some people are dividend focused, growth focused, maybe a little bit of that end.
Yeah, I would say I'm a blend of kind of all three, of the long term buy and hold, the looking for growth, looking for the dividends, but also mixing in some swing trades. So the swing trades I make are not like size really high. Like I'll throw a couple like $100 or $200 into a stock and kind of try to get a little upside. And my friends always crack on me. He's like, dude, you're gonna sell right now. You're gonna make like $5. The thing's gonna go up $20, and you're gonna text me like, why did you sell it? But honestly, I don't like. I guess it's a way to kind of diversify that risk. If you're getting a little bit of a gain here and there on the top, I don't mind just taking it. But I would say majority of the focus is the long term buy and hold, regardless if it's dividend or if it's growth. So on the growth side, I think my allocation is around 60% dividend, 40% growth, and the growth highly percentages from Amazon and Google. But then if you kind of mix in a couple, like I have Virgin Galactic, I really like DraftKings, like a couple like those. Even if the price is up, I just see them as like a buy and hold. And on the dividend side, like AT&T and like Pfizer, like those. So it's a kind of a blend of all three.
Gotcha. What do you think your financial goals are? Maybe short term and long term. What would you like to see happen?
I would really love to get into real estate at some point, and that's probably like 3 to 4 years. But right now, I just want to keep building the portfolios and keeping a good eye on and make sure I kind of do mix in some of those other strategies with the swing trades just to get a little bit of that added upside on it. But I think real estate's definitely one thing I would like to get into. I know we were talking offline about upstate New York. I did go to school upstate New York in the Albany area. And I think that's a really good opportunity for like college rentals because the houses are very affordable. I went to school there, so I kind of know the market. I know where to kind of look. And if I ever had to go up there, it's like an easy way to connect with the parents of the students, being a former student up there and kind of being able to make them feel maybe a little bit more comfortable and just, get a better idea about the area.
Yeah, I think that's a natural path of progression, getting into real estate after kind of starting in investing in stocks.
Yeah.
Anything else you're doing in terms of, I don't know, side hustles? Obviously, we're going to talk about sports cards investing. Any other investment types you would say fall outside the realm of just the typical stock market?
I've invested a little bit in precious metals with silver. So again, very kind of small sizing, but I just do like the coins themselves. I kind of wanted to. I think I started this maybe a year and a half ago. I wanted to start adding some silver to my portfolio, and it was more so for like the collectibles. So there's a website called Ampex, and you can get like Disney coins and Star Wars coins. So like anytime they have like pre-sale, it's pretty much like a little bit less than what they would go on if they were at the regular market price. And I usually focus on like limited mintage. So some of these coins are say 25,000 mintage or 30,000. So I think one of the first coins I picked up was this Lion King 25th anniversary minted out of like 25,000. I think I picked up 3 of them. At the time, price of silver was a little bit lower. Granted, that's a factor, but also like there's a slight premium. Maybe I paid, so let's say $25. Now that silver has ran up, I've liquidated a lot of my coins. So I was able to sell those coins for $50. So it was well above what silver is trading at. I have like 27, 28, whatever I sold it at, because it has that collectability and that tie to it. So that's something I want to keep getting into. I've sold out pretty much all those coins, and I actually bought a good amount of coins up. Some other, another Lion King coin, like a second edition in that series, and some more Star Wars coins. So I want to continue that trend of like when they post new collectible coins on the pre-sale, so you get a little bit of that upside with the coin being a little bit less than it would be when it goes to market. And also the fact that if silver goes up, that's a bonus, but also just the fact that as new series come out, the first series is way more collectible as well and has more value. So that's like one thing I've been kind of doing as well.
And that value comes not only from the silver, but in the fact that people are looking for these different types of coins. Is that right?
Yep.
So that's kind of a good segue here into talking about sports cards. And that's how I came across your channel. Like I said, I'm a big sports fan as well. Obviously, we're both into business. So it's kind of cool to see the two worlds mesh together. I think people obviously like Gary Vaynerchuk are definitely maybe on the forefront of making this popular in multiple different places where it seems like sports card investing has kind of taken off. Maybe it's by nature of quarantine and people don't have things better to do, but talk a little bit about how you came across sports cards investing, why you were so attracted to it, and kind of, we'll go into a little bit more from there.
Yeah, so I've been a big fan of sports cards since I was a kid. I probably still have like binders and binders of cards when I was buying, but over the past few years, I've definitely been keeping an eye on prices. I always go on eBay, like look at different cards, but I didn't really understand the market itself. I didn't even really know how much of a market. It was more me thinking like I wanted to get into this, and I thought there was like so much value that wasn't being recognized. But again, one person's not going to make a market, regardless if I started buying up cards. Yeah, it would have been a good decision if I bought cards 2-3 years ago, but hindsight's 2020, I would have even known it was going to blow up to this state. So as you mentioned, with the quarantine being in New York, I mean, I've been working from home for 7 months now. And even then, when we were kind of just staying at home, really doing nothing, I was talking to my buddies on Zoom, and you kind of going a little bit crazy. So I'm like, all right, what, there's no sports going on. I just kind of thought like, hey, let's look into some sports cards. Like maybe even so, like there is a little bit of a market going on. If there is a market going on, I anticipate the market's very similar to the stock market, that these card prices are down. And that's what I came across too. And then I looked up on YouTube, I put up sports card investing. I came across a channel called Sports Card Investor. His channel like is blowing up right now. I think when I started following him, he might've been like, let's say 10,000 right now. I think he's at like 42 plus. Wow. Yeah. So he puts out phenomenal content. And he was talking about PSA 10 graded cards of baseball guys like Gleyber Torres, who I love as a Yankees fan. I think he was talking about Pete Alonso as well. And I didn't really know like a lot about like these PSA 10 graded cards, but that's once he started talking about, I'm like, okay, I'd rather focus on these just because of just because how much value they'll hold up. And I think they're just a premium card in the market. So at that point, I just said, okay, it was good information on his part, but I wanted to focus on guys that maybe he wasn't necessarily talking about. So I went in, I got like a Saquon Barkley. That was like one of the first cards I picked up. It was like a PSA 10 for like $30. I'm like, I thought that was a really good price. Granted, like, cause it's a PSA 10 in itself, it's like $15 to grade it. And I think Saquon Barkley just had a little bit of an off season last year. He came on strong at the close of the season, and I was able to flip that right before the start of the NFL season for like $100. And now his market has tanked. Yeah, I know exactly. The timing was perfect because now that card's probably like $50. So yeah.
For those that don't know, Saquon Barkley tore his ACL.
Yeah.
And if you could, what is PSA 10? What does that mean?
What was that? You kind of broke up just for a second.
What is PSA 10? What does that mean?
Oh, that means like professionally graded.
Okay.
I forgot what the acronym is, but they look at everything. So the surface, if there's any marks or scratches, the corners are key. But the most important thing is centering, which I didn't really understand what it meant at first. But like the card itself, like the borders, it has to be perfectly centered to get a 10. So it's really hard. But there's even a big market, which I might start to look in. I might not. You could buy raw cards. But the thing is with raw cards, I feel like if someone's selling a raw card for the most part, they know it's a 10. Like, why not just send it in and get it? Like, that's why I avoid it. I've heard people who've had success sending in buying raw cards from eBay, sending them in and getting a 10. I think it's fewer than not. And I think they're maybe not portraying it the most accurate way. Because if I had a card, I'm like, this could get me a 10. Why would I sell it on eBay for a fraction of the cost so I can send it and get it graded myself? And that card could be raw and ungraded for say 15. You get it graded and it's a 10. That could be a $250 card, depending on the card. So it doesn't make any sense why people would maybe focus on buying those raw with the intention to get it graded. But I've heard instances where they actually do get 10s.
So what makes a card a good card? We talked about, the picture being centered. It sounded like on your channel, you talked a little bit about how, because there's so many different brands. So different brands with different sports make it more appealing. What are you actually looking for? I'm sure there's a lot to go into on this, but if you could just give a quick rundown of what you look for, what actually makes a card a good card, maybe outside of, obviously you don't want scratches, stains.
Yeah. So I definitely focus on the player first. And to be honest, I need to do a better job of trying to identify which card is the card, because there are like true rookie cards. So that's a big factor of what is the most desirable card. So for instance, I'm a big fan of Cody Bellinger. I think the Dodgers have a great shot of winning the World Series this year. Even as a Yankees fan, hopefully the Yankees can get there, but they kind of struggled last time. I don't know how much you follow baseball, but Cody Bellinger, one of his best cards is like this Topps update. So I've been buying some of the other cards, and I'm not sure if that'll actually come back to bite me if his market goes up. Like, is that true rookie card going to go up at an exponential rate and the other ones kind of lag behind? But again, that one is a little bit more expensive. Like a PSA 10 is like $230 or $250, and the ones I'm getting are like 40, 50. So even if that goes up 15, 20%, and the other ones go up 10, I'd be happy with that just because of the lower entry point. But when it comes to identifying the particular cards and the sets, that's something I still need to learn a lot more about. I feel like my advantage is maybe looking at players that are undervalued and kind of recognizing that. That's probably where I've done pretty good on that standpoint. But the actual cards themselves, I probably need to do a little bit more learning and get more information on those.
So when you are picking up these players, it's almost kind of like you're talking about it like it's a stock, right? So you're trying to find stocks that's undervalued. You're trying to find a player that's undervalued. That way, when they perform, that the cost of their card is going to go up. So is that another thing that you're kind of bringing into play when you're trying to find, cards that you think will go up in value?
Yeah, definitely. So for football, a guy who I targeted in fantasy, so I'm a big fantasy football fan, was Calvin Ridley. I thought he was prime for a big year, and he's been one of the best receivers in the league right now. This game against the Packers, the whole Falcons offense struggled, especially him as well. But his cards, I think, have absolutely blew up, and I think even the market was anticipating him doing really well, because for what he did last year, his cards were crazy expensive. Like, there was really no discount on his card prices. But like, yeah, a guy like him was someone I really wanted to get into, but I couldn't justify paying those prices, because it's almost like a stock in that sense. Because like, if you say you have earnings expectations coming up and the stock is trading like crazy high, expecting those earnings, sometimes there's limited upside, there's more downside, because if they barely outperform earnings, it might tank. But if they miss earnings, the thing could really tank. So that's kind of the justification I went in with him. Like, even though I was very bullish on his cards, I just thought the significant increase getting close to the season with all his hype and anticipation, it just wasn't worth it. I think it still probably could have been worth it because look at the year he's having. He's been one of the best receivers in the league. So even if he had a jump season this year and he's doing well, I think it's not as much upside as him, of course, being like a top 3 receiver this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like it's probably hard to value these. I feel like it's probably a lot of just kind of like what you feel in your gut because
Yeah.
there's no like price to earnings ratio. You can't
No.
look at these numbers. So
Yeah.
is that
Yeah, a
true?
lot of like historical. That's pretty much like if you look at it, is like what did this card sell out in the past, and what's kind of like the max it can go to, and what's like kind of the floor. And it's really hard to gauge it too because we're in a completely different market right now. Like this is one of the hottest times for sports cards since like maybe the junk wax era and like a couple years ago. Like not couple, that's like only 20 years ago or so. But definitely looking at historical prices and like a guy like say Aaron Judge, he's another guy I've invested in. So he started the MLB season one as one of the hottest hitters in baseball. I think he had like 9 home runs in the first like month and a half. His card prices shot through the absolute roof. And since he got injured, I actually did decide to pick up some of his cards at like a fraction of the cost, knowing that the baseball playoffs is winding up. And I, fingers crossed, I hope they were going to make a deep run. But that's kind of one thing I would look at for sure is historical pricing, kind of get an idea of am I buying at the top, which I would not like to, depending on the player? Am I buying at the middle or am I buying at the bottom? So that's probably the most information you're really able to get because there's really no like as you mentioned, like there's no price earnings of these guys. It's really driven by performance. It's driven by the season. Where are they at? Are they going to make it to the playoffs? Do they have a good shot to making to the World Series? Or say like in basketball, like Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, those guys' cards like just they blow up because they make it to the finals. So there's a lot tied to it, but there definitely is a lot of downside if you kind of say time it wrong. Timing's key in this, and also just injuries can of course ruin values for sure.
Yeah. Are there any tools to use that show price fluctuations like similar to the stock market?
Yeah, so that channel I was talking about, Sports Card Investor, he has his own website called Market Movers. I gotta imagine this guy is just doing phenomenal. I mean, it's like I think it's for the pro version, it's $49 a month, and then he's got and then he's got a lower tier at $19.99, and the amount of viewership he gets, and the amount of people that talk about it and review it. I mean, he's got to be doing very well. I know he's also he owns multiple businesses, so that's a very good tool. I don't think I would necessarily get it just because I'd rather just kind of just take the time to look at the card and then just go to the eBay price history, get an idea of what it's trading at. But it is a really good software. Like if I end up doing this like at a much higher scale, I would probably get it because it tracks all your cards. So once you buy a card, you can list it on there. So it's like my collection. It shows you the price activity of cards you hold. And then you can pull in like 3 different cards. Say you can pull in 3 different cards for one player and kind of get an idea of which one's going up. So there's a lot of value to it to get that information right there. But I think it's just a little bit pricey. That'd be like $600 for the year. I think he does offer a discounted rate if you do buy a 12-month or maybe a 3-month package. But I have another buddy in the community he was talking about how he enjoyed it, but he just from his standpoint, he didn't see it as too much value at the price itself.
Yeah. You'd have to be selling a lot of cards.
To make it just exactly. Yeah, it's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there big money in sports card investing? Are guys out there buying hundreds and thousands of cards and managing all of that?
I would think so. So I don't know if you know Vegas Dave, but he's like another guy in channel who's big into this. He bought a boatload of Mike Trout rookie cards. I think he probably spent at the time maybe 1.2 million or so, 800,000. He sold a Mike Trout rookie refractor, 1 of 1. I think it was like a PSA 9.5 or PSA 9. I think it fetched 4.2 million. And he was on record of saying, there's a video of it. I'll have to shoot it over to you. He just has like 10 of them. And he's like, I'm going to make millions of dollars on these. And now he's getting into
Mike Trout buying his own cards? Like who's paying that much?
I know, it's crazy, dude. It's wild. But yeah, then he's got into Derek Carr with the Vegas, tied to it in the entertainment side. His cards have been doing well. I kind of flipped one of his cards, but there's a lot of celebrities getting into the market. So Logan Paul is big into Pokemon. He dropped, I think, 60,000. I heard on a podcast on Pokemon cards. And Steve Aoki and DJ Snake, they just opened up a card shop in California. Yeah. So I think there's a potential of this going even larger than it is with mainstream media and celebrities getting into this and bringing back the nostalgia factor, whether that be Pokemon cards or baseball cards. And that's another really exciting part about the market, the ever-changing environment. So it shifts constantly, like it from baseball to being basketball to being hockey. Like people are just jumping, and it causes the other markets to go down, but then it causes them to go up again. So people are like, oh my God, soccer's lagging. Like soccer's a really good value. Everyone jumps into soccer, which causes them to leave football and baseball. And then the people are like, oh crap, baseball and football are down. You go, and it just like really, if you can kind of get an idea of where the next jump could be and which one's going to be falling, that could present an opportunity. Like right now, basketball is falling, so I'm looking to hopefully unload a lot of baseball with the Yankees and Dodgers, and then go heavily into basketball with guys like Ja Morant and maybe Zion and Luka, because their prices are down significantly.
Is that just nature of that they're not playing right now, so people aren't seeing their face?
Yeah. Because that's funny. There should be value with those guys. I mean, Ja Morant won Rookie of the Year, but his car prices are down so much. Like what happened with him? Like it's just a matter of not playing, really nothing to kind of to factor in. But I think that's a really good entry. I did buy a job because his car price is like $250, and I got one for like $120, and then with taxes like $140. So I think I'll have no problem listing that starting next year if he's doing well for $225 and get it sold.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of, I don't know, you're probably the same way, like had Pokemon cards growing up, right? And I remember hearing, even when I was little, I was like, you hold these for 30 years and they're going to be, gonna be a millionaire. And I think I was cleaning out my childhood room a few years ago, and I came across all my sports cards and stuff. I was looking up prices and they were like $5, $2. I was like, man, didn't hit the jackpot on this one. But it's kind of like, it's almost like investing in art. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, like high level art investing has outperformed the market big time over the years.
I've seen that,
which is weird because I think it's uncomfortable for people, especially if you're putting a lot of money into it, to buy this weird piece of art and assume somebody would pay more for it later. But the nice thing about that, or the nice thing about buying sports cards, is it's something tangible. So you buy it, it goes down in value. It's like, all right, well, maybe I like the Yankees, so I like to have an Aaron Judge card. It's not like I spent, $500,000 on this. So at least it's something in your hand. You can enjoy it for a few years and then maybe sell it once it's back up higher or whatever.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's exactly how I think of it too. Most of the guys I invest in, I'm at least some sort of fan of. So it's like, it's part of my collection if I don't sell it. And even if I had to say take a little bit of a loss, say I lost $5, I've made a good amount of money right now that it's all kind of priced in. So I think it's all kind of gravy. One thing is definitely inventory management. I got to make sure like I don't buy as much cards up if I'm going a little stagnant on it. But yeah, I definitely focus on like if a guy like Aaron Judge, if I'm a fan, it could be a PC item if it kind of just tanks in value.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's something you enjoy. So you probably enjoy kind of seeing the cards, showing them on your YouTube channel. So it's kind of a win-win there. Back on the sports thing, kind of a different realm, but I know you've covered DraftKings on your channel. We've seen things like pen gambling lately kind of skyrocket in price. Obviously, thanks to I think Barstool Sportsbook is the thing that they're working with. Either way, they partnered with Barstool. Maybe talk a little bit about where you see sports gambling going. I think with obviously the pandemic initially, it was kind of a dry community because there wasn't anything to bet on. I don't know if you bet on sports at all, or at least I know you're involved in kind of covering the community. So I think it's something that's going to continue to go up in value, especially with more accessibility with phones and computers. So do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm very bullish on the market. I don't personally bet on sports. I've occasionally done some fantasy football lineups for DraftKings daily. I got a good amount of buddies that just love betting on sports, and I might, dabble a couple times and maybe throw a bet in there. But yeah, very bullish on the market. And what I like what they're doing is they're getting more involved in all aspects of sports. So when I started kind of being on the app, I pretty much only saw baseball, football, basketball. I don't even know if hockey was on there. Now they have hockey, they have golf, they have NASCAR, they have
Cricket.
MMA, they got cricket. They have everything encompassed. And not only that, but I think the most exciting avenue is the esports market, where you can bet on Overwatch and I think Call of Duty or World at War. Like that esports market, I think has so much long-term value. That's a big reason I also like to invest in Activision Blizzard. But I think the tie between, kind of gambling and maybe daily fantasy with esports is a really interesting dynamic. And I think just DraftKings in itself, they've been doing some really interesting moves. So I think maybe beginning of September, they added Michael Jordan to their board of advisors for a small equity position. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong getting Michael Jordan on the board to advise anything sports or business related. So I thought that was a huge win for them. They've gotten some really big professional sports teams to get partnership deals with, which gives them access to all their logos, their branding, their marketing, their broadcasting. And of late, I know they've gotten the Giants and the Eagles. So two really big markets with Philadelphia and New York. And I think they're just doing a lot of things right. They also have partnerships with ESPN. They're the official daily fantasy for ESPN. And when it comes to sports betting, they have a dual partnership with them and Caesars. So I just see, like as you mentioned, I think this market has a lot of room to grow, and I think it's really exciting. And one issue definitely is the legislation, as maybe some states start to push back. That could be an issue, but they are working pretty diligently on getting more approvals in different locations. And I know they have, I think, 5 or 6 for their sports betting app. So sports betting app is definitely at a limited capacity opposed to, say, daily fantasy. I would say daily fantasy is probably, if not in all states, then majority of the states you can access the daily. But when it comes to like actually their sports betting app, it's definitely at a limited capacity. But one other thing that's really cool is, this might have been a few months ago, they either partnered or they bought a company where they're able to live stream sports. And as long as you have a balance in your account and your state is allowed to play sports bets, then you're able to watch that game for free. So I know they started out with a soccer league in Germany, because I imagine the rights of streaming to NFL and like it's just be a fortune. But I think it's just a proof of concept for them. And as they grow and maybe get more partnerships with NFL teams and whatnot, they might have streaming capabilities. But I thought that was really cool. Just all you need is $1 and you can watch the game. And you're definitely more inclined to go and bet once you're watching the game.
Yeah, that's a super interesting concept,
Mm-hmm.
especially with people cutting cords, right? Or cable cutting, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, people are, we've seen it. Obviously, I don't want to talk about a lot of the more controversial stuff, but obviously the NBA finals viewership is in the street right now.
Yeah.
All different topics we could talk about there, but one that you can't deny is that people are cutting cable, and especially during times of a pandemic where people are losing jobs, they're looking for ways to save money. They're going to get rid of that $40 a month, Time Warner, whatever they were using, and they're looking for ways to watch sports. And I think that's a pretty cool concept where you can watch it via the gambling app.
Yeah.
Of course, people are going to want to put money onto the game, so that's a good business move. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
For we kind of talked about esports. Are they actually allowing you to bet on esports matches? Is that a thing?
I believe that might be the case. I would have to look more into exactly if it's like you build a roster of maybe the players, or you bet on individual lines. I would imagine if your state allows you to bet like on the line and stuff, they probably do have some sort of like maybe a team. I don't follow esports to really know what the structuring of the competitions would be. But I would imagine if they have the opportunity to in your state with the betting, that there's probably some capacity of that.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing, because that brings in a whole nother realm of legitimacy, I guess. Talking about esports, you've talked about how you invest in Activision. I know you've covered that before. Where do you see that market going? Obviously, probably nowhere but up right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, more and more kids are playing video games. Adults are playing video games. Do you ever see that taking over the traditional sports world, or do you think it's always going to be kind of in the sideline? Also, do you like the aesthetic look of the sun rising right in front of my face right now? This is proof that it's early.
Oh man, it's so hard to say if it will take over. I think if it does, it'd be a long ways away, maybe like 30, 40, 50 years. I think it'll always take a backseat. But even so, like sports is growing. I think you're getting more youth into into sports with trying to press health and fitness. I think we kind of hit like a little bit of a gap period where there was too much gaming and kids weren't getting out, getting fresh air. And I think it's good to have a combination of both, allow them to focus on sports, but also when you're having that downtime, yeah, work on your schoolwork, but play some video games. That's all for fun, have a good time, enjoy it. So I think there'll probably be a combination of the two going forward. But when it comes to say esports, I think and Activision Blizzard, I think they're kind of just working on different things and different revenue streams that can kind of get things going, whether that be with maybe partnering with a DraftKings with the DraftKings, and also with Activision Blizzard. I don't know exactly, maybe it was Overwatch, but they do have partnerships with YouTube. They were initially partnered with Twitch. So just getting that streaming capabilities and that income from there is definitely another revenue driver with their apps. They do very well with in-app purchases with their COD games. Their COD games absolutely blew up with the downloads. So just getting eyes on that and getting the opportunity for people to go and get extensions and game packs. And I think they've been rolling that out more. Like I haven't played video games in forever, which is kind of funny why I invest in a video game company. But I do see them as a really solid company and a good emerging market and expanding market.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard an interesting, I don't remember the exact statistic, but from what I understand, kids aren't asking for money. They're not asking for, you know, other gifts for Christmas and their birthdays. They're asking for like in-app purchase money for these games that they're playing. So it's like,
wow, that is interesting.
I want virtual money to pay for virtual things in this virtual game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely a balance. Obviously, it's hard to find that balance, but yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be hard to take over traditional sports, but
Yeah.
it's got its own lane for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely call it a little bit disruptive in terms of it takes people's attention away from kind of the mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
Are there any other disruptive technologies or businesses that you think, or sectors that you think are kind of working its way in, that you think you could see kind of being the next big thing going forward?
Yeah, definitely EV's been blowing up right now. That's been a hot topic, especially with Tesla. I decided to add a little Tesla to my portfolio. I think the M1 Finance one, I had like I think it was 4 or 2% allocation. So right now I might have like maybe $200-300 with the Tesla, just kind of, but the return's been nice, which is cool. But Neo's been doing well. I think if I had to look into one, it'd probably be Neo, because they are a dominant force in the Chinese market. And one thing about Neo, I've did one video on this because it was actually one of like the best picks during my live stream. The overall Chinese market had like 200 or so EV companies, and I think by 2025 that will be down to like 6 through consolidation, or just some are just going out of business. So that'll open up a lot of opportunities for them with having so much competition either now or in the past to go forward, and have a lot less competition will definitely be an advantage to them. But yeah, EV's been blowing up. Solar's been doing well too with alternative energy, and I think Exxon might have cut their dividend. I haven't been aware, but honestly, that might be one I might just scrub from the portfolio if they are, cutting the dividend and whatnot. But I did add Sunrun, which is one I really like with the solar energy, alternative energy. I think that market's going to continue to grow long term as we probably look to transition more as an economy and into that solar aspect. So EV, solar, and I do like Virgin Galactic. I think that's an interesting one. That's very disruptive. Really nothing like it on the market when you commercialize space flight. So a lot of risk there, but a lot of things to like with that one.
Yeah, definitely exciting times. I agree with a lot of what you just said. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm the king of vague statistics this morning, but with Tesla, at least in China, like you said, there's like 200 EV companies popping up. I think Tesla still has between 10 and 30% of the market share.
Of the market share, wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And probably only going to get better. So, but yeah, Neo's definitely probably the other one. Those are kind of the two big dogs right now in terms of actually having a plan and actually having
a product share. Yeah.
Exactly. I have not invested in Neo. I'm pretty heavy into Tesla, as I've talked about previously here. So looking forward to how they're going to do in the future.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's kind of wrap this thing up. So I like to kind of ask every guest. We talked a lot about finance. I really enjoyed our conversation today because it wasn't just strictly about,
Me too, man.
which dividend stock, so it's good to break the mold on that. But what do you do outside of investing just to kind of, either advance yourself as a person, right, as a human being, or
Mhm.
just to kind of let off steam and kind of enjoy life?
Yeah, I probably should do a little bit more reading when it comes to books to kind of
Yeah,
grow
we
that
probably
knowledge.
all
But
should. So
yeah, but I don't read anything at all. My sister's a big reader. She'll probably read more books in probably the next month than I've read in the past 10 years.
including
But
college.
yeah, exactly. But I do a lot of research when it comes to like looking up stuff like that, reading articles and watching videos. So that's how I probably, like to look to expand my knowledge. But when it comes to like downtime, love just hang out with my buddies either over the summer when in normal circumstance we love going to the beach, we love taking trips, either going to like a Six Flags or going to the city, going out on the weekends, like just hanging out watching sports. So combination of just going out, living life, having fun, and just taking the most of every opportunity, just live it to the fullest.
That's awesome. So, Anthony, any closing thoughts, and then let people know where they can find you, and I'll throw your links below wherever this is going to be posted.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I had a blast, talking and the whole dynamic of it with the investing and the sports cards. Just a really fun conversation. So I appreciate you having me on, Rich. And you can find me over at Malone Money Mindset on YouTube, and I also have Instagrams and Twitters, probably like some variation of that, and they're all linked on my channel page if you want to learn more about investing or also join one of my live streams or learn more about sports card investing. Feel free to stop on over.
Sweet. Sounds good. Thanks, Anthony, and enjoy the rest of your day because it's only like 5 a.m. right now. So we got the whole day in front of us.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. See ya.